way into the podcast.
Just easing it in there with some background chit chat, and then okay.
Yeah,
good.
and in fact, we've been recording right now, so I'm going to have Bobbi say hi and introduce us.
Hi, this is Bobbi. You are listening to The Longest One Night Stand with Bobbi
and Ro, and today we have a very special guest that I want to welcome to the show. It's Mariah, and she is the host of the Salty Sexcast, which is a sexual education podcast sharing positive messages around sex-related content. And Mariah, I'm going to have you introduce yourself. Because I want to make sure that we get the title correctly. We did talk about this before, but I want to make sure that we get it 100% correctly because of one of my shows, I'm the Stone Genius. So taking that into account, I may have screwed up what you had told me to say. So I will let you introduce yourself, Mariah. Hi, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ro, I do the same thing with a lot of my guests. So I'm going to screw it up, and I want to honor who that person is so it's easier for them to introduce themselves, right?
Right.
So I'm Mariah, the host of Salty Sexcast. I am a national board certified health and wellness coach and a certified health education specialist coming from Utah. So it's kind of a big deal to be talking about sex and having such a public platform with sex. And there's still part of me that has one foot in the closet with this podcast, which is really hard to do with how popular it is. I mean, how well known, how, our listenership, that kind of thing. So,
and that's one thing that's interesting is when I have told people leading up to this that I was going to have you on and what you did, they go, well, a lot of times they'll go, well, are they local? And I'm like, no, she's from Utah. And they're like, what? I mean, it's always like, this is happening in Utah? And I'm like, yeah, it is.
Yeah. Lots of things are happening in Utah, actually. We have such a strong, high religion culture. So the counterculture is just as crazy, but we're just hidden in the shadows a little bit more. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Once you start pulling back some of the curtains here in Utah, you're like, oh, dang. Oh,
right. And that's that's some things that, I wouldn't even thought about the counterculture when something is so strong in one direction, you do have that counterculture and that pushback. That's something I didn't even think about with Utah because of the demographics, I believe that the major religion in Mormon and the roommate that I had when I met Bobbi, he passed away, and that's actually how I met Bobbi, but he was Mormon. And I remember him, he was not very out, but I've always been fairly open about talking about anything. And I remember he was very reserved about any of that. And do you find that a lot in the Utah that it's probably more suppressed or more quiet? I don't even know what the term would be.
It's hushed. Yeah.
Hushed.
It's secretive. It's whispered, right? So that's the exact reason why I started the podcast. So being a health coach and meeting with clients one-on-one, my niche, my specialty is in body image. So talking about body image, a lot of times coming up, being vulnerable, being sexual, being an intimate person, a lot of times it's this parallel universe along with body image. And so no one would even dare bring it up in coaching sessions. They were terrified of and not talking about it. And so it's like, oh my gosh, I haven't been intimate with my husband in 6 months because I'm so worried about what he thinks about my body. I'm like, whoa, and so I'm like, this is something we need. And we need a safe platform. I can listen to a podcast. No one knows what I'm reading. It's not like this big book I'm lugging around, and it can be, but it went, the podcast went international really quick, and noticed there's a lot of other audiences that have, repressed feelings and never had open discussions about intimacy and sex and sexual wellness, that it was ever even on the table, and that I'm deserving of optimal sexual wellness, like
Right.
most folks don't even think about that. If they're talking about sexuality, usually they're talking about the problems, what's
Right.
not working. So,
Yeah, and I've noticed that, and preparing for this show, generally I try to write down a lot of questions, and then I'll come up with follow-up questions. But man, with this subject, I was all over the place. And one thing I found out recently, that someone that I've known for many years that I interviewed on the podcast, they had told me afterwards, I was talking about something else, and they said afterward, and I don't even know what I was talking about, they said, man, I didn't know we were such good friends. And I was like, what do you mean? And they go, well, you're just, sharing this stuff with me. And to me, I was kind of taken aback by that, because that's just, I will share anything with anyone. I mean, I have a filter, but I can remove that. If someone wants to talk about something, I will talk about it. And it just was very shocking that because of the way I talked about that, they interpreted it. I think it was something about sex. I think it was about a sex toy. And so, if you talk about that, people are like, and that's another thing. I don't really like the name sex toy, and there's a lot of things, but it was just weird that someone just talking about it, that people were so taken aback that they thought we were super good friends. And do you find that people that they can only talk to someone they can really trust about this more often than like me, who can just talk to anyone that I just met about anything?
See, and that was the thing I shared on one of my most recent episodes, is my first monologue episode. And I was like, man, that was something always easy for me to talk about.
Right.
I am an oversharer. TMI is kind of one of those things that I've been known for. And it's because I don't have a lot of shame in my human experience. I guess that button just didn't work with me, right?
Right.
And so I'm happy to share it. And then I've noticed a lot of people start gravitating towards me and want to share more. That's probably why I make a really good coach, which is really funny, because in my coaching sessions, I don't share anything about myself, but how you speak with people,
right?
They're willing to open up, right? And so being able to just have those harder conversations, a lot of people were able to be like, wow, I had never had anyone to talk about this to, or when I was talking about that, I thought they were judging me, or I was worried about this, that, or the other. But so that was just something that I've noticed for myself. A lot of people, and I'm willing to talk about things. But I asked myself, why is everyone so afraid to talk about hard things? And I guess that's why the podcast was good for me.
Right.
Because I'm willing to just talk about whatever. Like, there's not much off the table. I'm learning that.
Are you feeling that you're getting as much out of the podcast doing it yourself as you're getting back from the response? I mean, is it cathartic to you to do that and be able to talk about things that maybe you haven't been able to talk about in the past that you wanted to talk about?
Oh my gosh, it is incredibly healing in those areas. Like, it is something that my producer and I talk about all the time. And anytime like we're having like spats with our spouses or anything, I'm like, just get on the mics and hit record and just chat with each other. Like, it is so crazy how much you're like, oh my gosh, and re-listen to things, and you're like, okay, that's no longer a problem for me now that I feel like I've been able to work things out, and it's not just out there in the universe and then forgotten as quickly as I say it. It has some type of, I don't know,
staying power.
It's amazing.
Right.
Yeah, it really does. It's really cool.
And sometimes I think that the terminology that's used, like sex toys, is one, because a lot of times people don't associate, at least with my age, I'm 54, that, toys are for kids, not for adults. So if you call it a sex toy, then that's not an actual something. So the term that I have, if I talk about it with someone, I will say it's a sex condiment. And they look at me weird. And I'm like, well, do you like French fries? And they're like, yeah. And I go, do you put ketchup on your French fries? And they go, yeah. And I go, ketchup's a condiment. I go, ketchup, does it make your French fries better? And they're like, yeah. I go, boom, sex toy. I mean, I'm just trying to, break it down for them so they can understand that it can make things enjoyable. Now, so you have a little
accessory.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good one too. I was just trying to think of something because I think the terminology can prevent people from, I don't understand. I've never understood that. Like sometimes when people talk about sex, like if someone was to say something about my parents having sex, I don't have the same reaction. Like a lot of people are like, ugh, gross. And they don't. And I'm like, are you literally thinking about your parents? I mean, are you in your mind thinking about your parents having sex? Because I don't understand that it just seems like, so I don't know if they feel like that's the reaction they're supposed to have or whether I just am processing that information differently.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just saying, do other people have that? I mean, it just, there seems to be a huge disconnect out there.
Massive disconnect. I mean, you even think about the words we call each other when we're like, trying to either give each other shit or make fun of each other. It's like, don't be such a dick. You're such a pussy.
Right.
We have all of these sexual words have been used historically as derogatory, as dirty, as mean, as even the word sex. You get kids giggling at like, oh, is that a male or female sex? And they're like, so you have to say gender, whatever it is, like in health class, all sorts of things, because of language and the conditioning we've had around that language. And so it makes us, a little squirmish and it's hard to talk about it when really you start taking that power away or you start putting power into it in the direction that it's meant to be used. It's really, really empowering. And taking that and redefining it for yourself. Why does the word sex toy? And you broke it down. Okay, toys are for play for kids. Right. And this is not a kid's activity. This is an adult activity. But for me, toys and play and sex is fine because I do view sex as an adult version of play.
Right.
And so I'm okay with that. Right. And so it's just kind of redefining it, asking yourselves, why do I squirm with this? Oh, conditioning. My mom said, no, we don't use that word at home growing up forever.
Right.
And so then I couldn't all of a sudden as an adult just magically be okay with that word, whatever it is. Right.
Right. And I do think that's difficult and Bobbi grew up, and you can tell with her silence. She's here. I originally thought when we did this that she would not be on because she does not like to communicate about this. And so here's a quick history for you and for people that are just joining the show for the first time, because I'm sure with this topic there will be new first-time listeners. Bobbi and I met just over 26 years ago, February 3rd, for what I anticipated to be a wonderful one-night stand. And now we're 26 years into this, 2 kids, 2 grown kids. And so our journey was much different. We found out that she was pregnant, 4 to 6 weeks into, she was having back pains and went to the hospital. I dropped her off thinking she's going to be in the emergency room for something. I come back and I go, yeah, I'm looking for my friend Bobbi Lochner. They're like, oh, she's in the maternity ward. So I sat down for a minute. So anyway, our journey was much different because we had our first child 9.5 months after we met. Mm-hmm. And then, so we didn't have the courting going out. And now that we're empty nesters, we're starting to do more things. I don't want to say that we're more open and exploring now that we're empty nesters, but we have yes days where we just figure. Yeah. Bobbi's giving me, she's shaking her head.
You have yes days.
We have yes days. We have yes days where
you don't have a hand signal. Be like, no.
Well, no, it just for anything. If anything, yeah. Well, I mean, just anything that goes. But it's been very difficult. And one thing that I have always tried to do with her, because it is difficult for her to communicate, and I'm watching her while I say this, that I have said, always tell me what you want. If you want me faster, slower, left, right, whatever you want, tell. And she goes, I can't say that.
Yep.
But then I'll give her a back massage. And she'll be like, no, a little deeper right there. Oh, no, to the left. And so I'm always like, see, you do have the community. You can use the words.
But I will tell you why.
Okay.
Because I feel like in the moment, it will just, like, my thinking is it's going to, like, it takes a lot for me to, I have to focus, okay?
Right. And with kids in the house, that was very difficult, so...
And so me talking to you is completely redirecting my focus. So that's why I feel I don't want to interrupt it.
I can't even tell you how many years it took before I could get her to look me in the eyes.
Oh, stop.
Well, it's a, when women are in the turn on response, right? Like to speak, to even understand language in that moment, a lot of times that's going to pull us from it.
Okay.
Like it's a multifaceted thing. Typically women are so turned on to like all of the receptors, we're paying attention to what's going on, what's coming up, like just heightened sense of awareness. And so any interruption with that, now we're pulled from the turn on response, right? And I'm like,
right.
I'm already thinking about groceries right now.
Right. And I'm not a talker even, and you know that. Like,
I do.
I'm not even a talker. Like,
yeah.
I don't talk to people like Rodney does, and it's like...
I don't know, Mariah, I don't know if have you seen the movie Trainwrecked with, Amy Schumer?
And John Cena.
There's a part
yes.
where she's in bed with John Cena and she wants him to talk to her during sex. And I think it is one of the funniest scenes of any movie. I just die hysterically when he's trying to talk to her. And sometimes I get that if that's not, because, and I'm not sure I wanted to say that Bobbi was like John Cena, but in that time, the communication, it was different. He was being weird and funny about it. And she just has that. What would you think would be the best for not only us, but for someone else? Because there are other people that would have this communication. Is it a talk about it beforehand, well in advance beforehand? I mean, how?
All of the above.
Okay, all the above. Now,
so it's little pulls here and there, right? It is when you guys are, whatever your aftercare looks like, if it's snuggling, if it's like, doing a cleanup together, whatever that looks like, just say one good thing that you enjoyed. Ooh, I liked that. And that has and it builds trust without the huge expectation of now I need to break everything down, play by play. But as long as hey, I can take that little, one thing, and I can definitely make sure I can do that again, or now that I know what she likes, or maybe, and if you're going to say one thing, I would highly recommend it be a positive, but if you wanted to bring in, hey, I wasn't a big fan of that, definitely end up with a positive too. So then bring in two things. So it can look like aftercare. It can look like if you guys are watching porn together or something like that, she can be like, hey, and like give you a hand squeeze, like she's interested in that, something like that.
Right.
It can be very, very little. It doesn't even have to be verbal. It can, hey, when you squeeze my arm like that, or, do this, I know that that's something you like more of. I'm not a verbal person either, and I've had to really build that up.
Okay.
So
now here's something that I thought was interesting to me. So, and I'll back up with my nudity because we'll get into that. I was raised in a church. Everyone in my family was in a church. My grandfather was minister. My grandmother worked in the church. My dad worked in the church. So they all worked in the church. So I grew up very repressed, and I was adopted, and a lot of people are like, oh, well, you're adopted. Your parents just couldn't have kids. If you've ever met my parents, you'd be like, yes, but they probably didn't have sex. There's just no there's no parallel universe where I can ever see them having sex. I don't know why. But anyway, so I was very repressed. And back in the early 90s, I was dating someone from overseas, from Denmark. And it was one of our first dates, and she was coming over, and we were going to go out, and she needed to change at our place. And so I had taking her back to the bedroom, and I was going to the bathroom down there. It's showing her, and she just started getting undressed in front of me. And I was like, I remember saying, "Wow, you're not very shy, are you?" And she goes, "You Americans are so weird about the body." And for some reason that clicked. And ever after that, I'm like, why am I upset about my body? I mean, why should I care? And on your nudity, the episode that you do about nudity, there was a great comment by your guest where they said the nudity is not for the other people. I always say that to my wife. It's for me. And like, I'm not like a nudist. I don't want to go. I like to be nude all the time. I would prefer not having clothes on and just being in a super warm house, but so many people think that's weird. And so my feelings of that kind of changed on a dime when I heard that comment. Well, doing research for this show, I started thinking about when people ask, "How's your sex life?" The most common answer is a number. We do it 3 times a week. We do it 5 times a week. We do it. We're watching Real Housewives of Dallas. Someone does it 10 times a week, twice a day. You know, so it was always a number, and I always thought about that because, like, either that night or the night before, I was like, you know, if that was the only time we did it this month, that was pretty amazing. My eyes rolled back in my head. I said hello to God, and I think my toes may have curled as well. But it's just kind of weird that do you find that a lot, that when people are quantifying how good their sex life is, that they are kind of, it seems like I was missing the mark because I would relate a number as opposed to the quality of it.
Well, and when you're saying a number, you are, or even a quality, you're still making the assumption that this is partnered intimacy.
Right.
You can still be a very intimate person with yourself. And in fact, it's a great, healthy way to learn what you like and what you don't and what you want more of. And it's a perfectly healthy thing when it is, you know, still checked with your partner and things like that, that it's not, hey, I'm just being intimate with myself 5 times a day and then I'm not interested in you.
Right.
You know, obviously that's when we have problems, but it's an interesting concept of what people even view as what's good, what's bad. I don't know. I only have media or, you know, porn or anything else to compare off of, right? You brought in like Real Housewives or like TV shows.
Right.
Are these true things? Should I be comparing on? So that's the biggest question is what is your view of quality, healthy intimacy?
And so is that to the end, that'll be to each individual and then to each couple or however that plays out. But that would be an individual.
I mean, you can't compare to other people. I mean,
right.
They can't compare to you. I mean, we had a couple that had anniversary and birthday sex. Like, I mean. And
that is like, to me, that is such a foreign concept. So because one of the things about Bobbi and I think that intimacy helps our, I mean, I always, there's something that it changes in our, I don't want to say in our dynamic, but it just, it enhances our overall relationship. She's rolling her eyes.
And
she's rolling her eyes because she was like, she doesn't.
You want it all the time.
Well,
I try, but
I know
I'm not there.
I know. That's all right. So so she's sexy. I can't help it. So, yeah. But
and I mean, that's the number one thing that like relationships or sex therapists, well, mostly relationship therapists will look at is, you know, where is your intimacy level? And because that's like the canary in the coal mine, right? If things are off, most likely your relationship, something's going on in your relationship. If, you know, you used to have sex 3 times a week and now it's only once a month, hey, what's going on? You know, that kind of thing. But that's, again, partnered or part, you know, anytime. And when I say partnered, that does mean any more than one partner. I want to make sure I'm being inclusive with all of those, you know, different types of relationships. But with individuals, you know, just like Bobbi was saying, hey, you want it more than I do. That is 100% normal. Every couple has different drives at different times. It can shift from day to day. It can be atypical. It can be, like there are rare times, and it's probably the stars aligning when you both want it equally and you have the opportunity and there's no distractions or whatever. Like that's usually like the toe curling, the just amazing. Oh my gosh, we were on a different, universe. But it's rare that happens, right? We're all different individuals. We have different levels of homeostasis. We have different things that we are working on, different factors. And so to have the expectation that you're always going to have the same sex drive as your partner or partners is something I would highly encourage everyone to just let go of that expectation and try to figure out, how do you navigate with having 2 different or 3 different or multiple different sex drives?
Right.
That's the goal. Not to meet your partner and you both have the same sex drive, but to find out where you can connect and overlap on those.
Yeah, and that does make a lot of sense. And that's some things that, I guess there's many different terms, love language or whatever. There are times where I know that to help enhance Bobbi's, and I'll say state of mind, just so that she's more receptive to that later in the evening, like if I do the dishes or clean up or do some, or doing little things to help take something that may have been on their plate generally, or they were anticipating having to do when they got home, and you remove that. That's always, like if you're stuck going to a meeting and you get to go home early, that's always like, oh, that's awesome. So if you get home and you have that, and I know that is, I can see that on her face, that she's appreciative of little things like that. One of the things that I think is interesting, that as we have started to explore our journey more, Bobbi does not like, if I said I was going to buy lingerie for you today, what would you say?
Don't.
Yeah. She is not a fan of me buying lingerie for her. Do you want to explain why?
Because I wear it for 2 seconds.
So anyway, I will tell you one of the best things I have in the 26 plus years I've been with Bobbi, and she knows what story this is, that I've only surprised her a few times. Like really 100% like caught her off guard. And typically I am very good at knowing how a situation's going to play out. If I have a conversation or something with someone, I've already anticipated every possible outcome to that. And so I knew how this was going to play out. So I called Bobbi. I knew she would be mad. We were going out. We were going to a jazz club. And I called her and I said, hey, I got some underwear for you tonight. And she was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, no. And so when she gets home, there's an empty underwear box on the bed. And she goes, what did you say when you saw that box? You came out and because you said something like, where's the underwear, or was this what I'm supposed to wear?
Yeah.
Something, because she thought that I was like trying to joke, like, oh, don't wear any underwear. And I go, oh, you misunderstood me. I go, the underwear is for you. And I was wearing it. So I had bought, and the thing that was very upsetting at the time is men's, like, I don't know what you'd call it, sexy wear. I'm not sure it'd be called lingerie.
Intimate wear.
Sure, intimate wear for men, yes, is very lacking.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, unless you want it to be in a tuxedo or have an elephant's trunk, and honestly, what I got is honestly an overpriced jock strap with like a designer logo on the waistband. But it was so amazing her reaction, because she was so caught off guard. But I knew I had totally anticipated all that, so I wore it. And that was the thing, is that I always tell her the lingerie is for you not to put on right before we go to bed, but for you to wear, so that I know that it's there, that I'm anticipating until that time. But do you find that it is harder for men to, it seems like sometimes men are just like, I want sex, let's do it. And do you, Do you find it harder for men to be more involved in the, not game, the dance? I don't know what you would call it, but
The effort?
Yes, the effort.
I mean, this again is a lot of societal conditioning, right? That men are owed sex, that they are expecting sex because they've put, even when you were saying like, hey, I did the dishes, you probably weren't even saying I did the dishes, so now I'm expecting sex. But that thought is still tickling your subconscious.
Yes.
You want to take that stressor from her so then she can be maybe in the more in the mood, because now she doesn't have to worry about that, or she was excited that you did something, so maybe she wants to return the favor. And even if this isn't her thought, that is typically the motivation for some of those acts. So check what is motivating you to, create more intimacy, or even just like less stress in the relationship or less stress on your partner, whatever, and say, I want to do that for them. And that stops there. If I get something in return, it's purely a bonus. And just taking that off the table of now I'm expecting it, but I did the dishes.
Right.
And so if it doesn't happen, then there's going to be, pouting or whatever, like however you want to look at it.
Right.
Even if it's not intentional, it does start to happen on the subconscious level, and then it becomes an expectation and a cycle thing. That puts a lot of stress on your partner when they just wanted to come home. They were so relieved that the dishes are done. And then they're like, I'm still so stressed out. I just need to go veg.
Right.
But now I'm supposed to perform and act like I'm super excited, because if I'm not, then my partner will never help me with dishes again.
Right. And I do think
the whole stress conversation. Yeah.
Right. And so then you can add stress. And that's one thing that as an adult, and I've always tried to we've tried to instill in our daughters, is do things without expectation.
Absolutely. I mean,
because
it's the best thing.
Yeah. I don't want to be expected to do something that I don't really want to because you just expect me to do it. It should be something that I want to do because it is of my free will, and I enjoy that. So,
let's even kind of switch that scenario a little bit. Let's say that you and Bobbi talk about, hey, can you use a couple words next time we're intimate so I know what's working, what's not, or whatever. And she says, yeah, I can probably do that. We've talked about what we can. So she has that. She feels like she's prepared. And then the moment is different. And then she's like, you know what? If I was talking, it probably would have taken me out of that. Or it felt unnatural in that moment, whatever it is. But then you're upset because then you're like, no, you told me you were going to talk and you were going to use some words or whatever it is. I mean, it can be any type of thing that we're talking about right now.
Right.
But the expectation was there. And so when you have that expectation, you have more possibility for friction and let down. Or she did agree to talk next time or use some words next time, but you thought it was going to be this type of words or this much. And it's really, she just said one or two words, right?
Right. And like, that's yes, when you...
Or more.
Right. Because you'll give the other person the ability to almost judge. They are justifying almost like you're justifying your action. Like I always tell my kids, like, if you need to say no to something, just say no. You don't have to explain, because an explanation to someone ends up being that person is now going to try to justify whether your excuse was good enough. No is fine. Yep. You can just say no, yep, and you don't need it can just be a no. I don't need to explain anything further than that. I meant to ask you this earlier. What was your epiphany? And I have a lot of epiphanies where I'm just like, oh, well, I've never thought about that. I'll try that. Or we've never done that. Or the whole nudity thing where something just clicks. Was there something that just clicked with you that said, this is what I want my field of endeavor to be? Was there something that just was like, this is the moment, and you remember that moment precisely?
For the podcast, for sex, or
so
wellness?
Just for your career, for what you do, for what you're doing, your podcast, what you're talking about. was there something that was like, I really have to share this message? What was that catalyst for you?
I grew up in trauma. And so like, but not realizing it was trauma. I didn't finally label it till I was in college. And then finally like, oh, I see where like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And although I was like, I was just in like the bottom two tiers. I could never get past, self-actualization and anything, or like feeling loved, anything like that. And that really clicked. And I was like, I want to do all that I can to support people in their own journeys of, not just surviving, but thriving. More than just living, but really, really just enjoying their life, optimal wellness, right? It was something that I was like, I never even thought was on the table. That's how much I was just barely surviving from day to day. I never knew I could be a better human being that way. And so that's why I went into wellness and have a master's in health promotion education and my certificates in the podcast, because I want people to know that there is more on the table that they've even ever seen or known that they had access to. And it's okay to want to be better than today.
Yes. Yeah. It's just strange how, do you think that now the younger generation, me being 54, and I think I'm very astute to what's going on, but do you think that the younger generation are more open, accepting, and more verbalized with this? We're talking about sex and sexual wellness, or do you think they have the same? Because a lot of these kids now, they have like parents like ours. Like, people always think it's weird that when on our very first podcast, our youngest daughter was on, and when Bobbi asked what her favorite, the best parental advice I ever gave her was, it was to always be prepared for a threesome or an orgy. And the response was, well, you've never been in a threesome or an orgy. And I screamed back, I know, I wasn't prepared. And so it's kind of a joke, but it was funny because even with my kids, that's never been a block for us. And so I know that a lot of parents, if I'm suppressed with my own sexuality, I would assume that many parents, if they're feeling that way, would pass that on to your kids. So is there any difference between the now generation and maybe a generation that's in their 40s or 50s or even older than that?
Whatever the traditional beliefs of sex are, it's been kind of this shift for the last, decade or two.
Right.
Because social media, because there's so much information at our youth's fingertips, right? We no longer can ignore it or just say, you're not ready for that conversation, we'll talk about it later. They're getting those messages now, whether you think they are or not.
Right.
And so if we are ignoring it, we are doing a huge disservice to our youth and for, multiple, further generations on. So what it is I think more people are calling attention to it and calling out the traditional beliefs, because why not? Why did you tell me I shouldn't do this?
Right.
Why did, because back before internet or so much access to so much information, it was okay because like I could get pregnant and there's no birth control or whatever, so
right.
There was a bit different fear tactics too, but now because we can pull back the curtain for information, that fear isn't there enough for me to believe you anymore. Like, I am going to go find it out. And so, but then that's also the danger of, letting our youth and that find out information, because they're going to use pornography. They're going to use other different sources that aren't the healthiest to find their education.
And I actually
think a lot of people know that, and they're just having conversations earlier.
I talk about that on one of the podcasts about pornography, how it was different in the 70s as opposed to today. Because today, in your pocket, you could access anything you wanted to with your phone.
Millions and millions and millions. Yeah. Just so much out there.
And back in the 70s, I always joked that it was in magazine form. And people, to find them, if your parents didn't have them, you would go to a shipping container, which was the recycle bin, and people would go put their magazines and newspapers. Because most people, like in Kansas City, you had morning and evening newspapers. So every week, the average house had 14 newspapers they were getting rid of. And then if you had, magazines, and they would put them there. So me and my friends, we would go up there, and I say it was like Indiana Jones, because most people were not putting their magazine. They would just go throw them in there. So they're sliding, they're moving. I mean, you're not on, but you're trying to find a brown bag because they put the magazines in the brown bag. And so then you had to find, so you were going to find, and you'd pull that brown bag out, and then you would try to find, because the limited number of magazines, you could find 8 brown bags in there, and they're all, 1976 Playboys, all 12 months, because everyone's getting that. So, it was very limited on what you could see. I joke in the podcast that you had Hustler, Playboy, and We. And I go, Hustler was for your degenerate, Playboy was for your average Joe, and We was a French magazine for your upper class people. And I was joking about that because if I wanted to see naked women, that's how I had to do it. I couldn't pull it up on my phone. There wasn't a computer. There wasn't any of that. So is that difficult?
You had analog porn.
Oh, yeah. I remember when porn first came out on computers, and you had to wait for the picture to load, and you'd be so excited, and it would load line by line, and you'd be like, oh, that's not what I was expecting. So Bobbi's laughing at me now. She's like, I don't know what dial-up internet is. Right. She's 7 years younger than me. So every once in a while we have those conversations too about what things are. Now, I want to tell you, I do have a question from a coworker. And they did tell me this question was not for them, it was for a friend.
Of course.
Okay.
So they ask, are some people incapable of experiencing great sex due to physically not being able to? That's how they wrote it. So I guess are some people just physically incapable of feeling something from sex, or would probably be more of something in the mind preventing them from enjoying it? I'm assuming that's what the question was.
Yeah. So the first thing I was thinking of is like, because their body shape, like but I see what you mean. Like the
just enjoyment, like
enjoyment. It's that's something that if somebody is unable to enjoy sex, I mean, they could be asexual. They could be conditioned so much that there's a block in their mind that they're just unable to get out of, or, and so, how people repress memories, right? It could be repressing the sensation during intimacy, okay, right? Because either something happened in childhood or maybe even just messaging and conditioning and fear. There could be so many things, but absolutely people could be going through the actions of sex and not actually getting the climax or the release or really enjoying it. Like it really could be like, hey, having sex with a partner feels the exact same way as just going for a walk down the block. Right. I know I'm moving my body, but there's not like this amazing connection with this person, because we're looking at, it's a multifaceted thing, right? It's not just a physical action.
Right.
You are having, an endorphin release, you're having the other hormones release, that you're connecting with your partner or partners. Like there's so many things, but there absolutely can be chinks in the system where that's not firing like a typical person.
Okay.
But that could be so many different things that are happening. I would say the first thing, go see a therapist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I will. Actually, I'm not going to pass that along. I'm going to make them listen to the podcast. They'll go, what was the answer? I'll be like, well, listen to the podcast, and I guess you'll find out then. So, but that's one thing that Bobbi and I try to work on is communication. That there was a long time where we felt it was a failure if one of us did not come to climax. Or what it was always like it seemed like it's like, you know, are you okay, are you sure, you know? And it was like, you know, it felt like I don't know if it felt like a personal failure on one of our parts, if that's how but it was just like, you know, I guess you kind of feel let down, like, oh, I couldn't make them do that, and so we had to get past that it's not always about that as well. And I think sometimes people miss the mark. And I guess it depends on where you are in your relationship or if you're in a relationship. So I think there's a lot of other things that come in. But Bobbi and I have to talk about that stuff quite a bit. And I know that
everyone needs to. Yeah.
And I think we do, but I think that and I don't know. I don't ever try to judge like what other people do, because Bobbi and I always say that we are super weird when it comes to our relationship, just how we process information, how we do things. So I don't ever want to like read into someone else's relationship, but I just wonder how much because I think that I'm very open. It's very easy for me to communicate, less so for Bobbi to respond. So what happens when you have two people that are less so on communication? I mean, is that just driving a wedge typically between someone like that if they don't have that ability to communicate?
You know, and
I may be asking way too deep. I mean, I a lot of times I just think on the fly, because I'm just trying to think about how it's easy for me to communicate, because I do get people, like I mentioned, where they're like, wow, you're
a podcaster for a reason.
Yeah. So, but because of that, I wonder, because I do understand that people can't talk like me. And I just wonder if I was like Bobbi, how would we ever figure that out? I mean, like, I don't think we'd ever communicate.
Well, I think you answered your question as you were working through that right there, right? I mean, you can only be as well as you're willing to communicate.
I laugh when you say that, because there were many times, and Bobbi was smiling too, that I will start a thought, and by the end of that thought, I've talked myself into it and out of it in the same breath.
That is what you were saying, you know, that healing thing of podcasting, being able to verbally process information. It's really cool. Like, I get far more from my own podcast than I'm sure my listeners do, right?
Right.
We just kind of brought that up at the beginning, but it is, because you're verbally processing information, you're working through it, and totally don't blame me for that. So that's why I was saying, I think you found your own answer.
So how often do you have that aha moment when you're doing a podcast? So, I mean, like when you're just talking, because I do that all the frigging time. But see, that's one reason, and I will joke that I'm better than someone because I can change my mind on a dime. But I do that all the time. I'll get that aha, and I'm like, you know, oh, I was the douchebag in this situation, even though I was trying to point out someone. So I get that. Do you do that on the podcast where you just almost pause and be like, oh, wow?
Oh, Brady, my producer, makes fun of me all the time. He was like, so the Salty Sexcast, where Mariah finally comes out as bi, where Mariah finally comes out as this, where Mariah discovered, you know, like, he makes all these jokes, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never connected with that information that way, but that really just helped me see it in a new light. Like, so I love having guests on that just are really great in their field, because how they bring topics up, and it's super fun just to find new language and new definitions, or a new light that you haven't seen some information in. So all the time, I definitely finally came out as bisexual on the podcast. Like, I knew I had those feelings, but just to actually verbally say it was on the podcast. And so
that's where you initially said it. I mean,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been, you know, and we, like, along the start of the podcast, if you listen to some of the really early episodes, I have a co-host, and her name is Pamela, and she's left now, but we started the podcast together, and she is polyamorous. And so they came on, you know, her and her partners came on, talked about the lifestyle and everything. And they were like, so Mariah, is this something you'd ever do? And I was like, no, thanks. It's not something I'm interested in at all. And then, like, 9 months later, I'm in a polyamorous relationship. And then like, so it's this whole journey of myself of, like, dabbling in polyamory and non-monogamy, and finding out from, and my husband and our journey, and then saying, hey, actually right now we're kind of off again. And so I was like, I don't know if I were like on again, off again, non-monogamous. And one of my guests, she came on and she's a therapist specifically for non-monogamous folks, and said, oh, you're just polysaturated at one. So you're open to things, but at this moment, you're saturated with just one partner. That's enough for you. I thought that was really cool just to have that language.
Right. I mean, and that's
yeah.
Sometimes that helps, because if you don't have the word to describe it, you can't tell anyone. You can't share that feeling. You can't. I mean, because if you can't verbalize it, and that would
for yourself.
Yeah.
I belong. My human experience is validated. Like, that means more to me than anything.
Right.
We're going to get real deep right now, but
No, and I understand that. And it's strange when I go back and I'm thinking about this. A couple months ago, we had gone to someone's 50th birthday party. And I was talking to a woman from another couple there, and what was the term that she used for us? She was obsessed with us?
Obsessed with us.
She was obsessed with us for some
Just
reason.
Us. Like,
we don't know why.
I don't know.
It was weird. But then when I was just talking, we were talking about being open. I mean, not like open relationship. We don't have an open relationship. I mean, but just whatever I was saying, she goes, are you bi? And I was like, oh, it was because I had said something about I had just got a prostate massager. And she goes, are you bi? And I was like, no. And she goes, are you gay? And I was like, no. And she goes, well, why did you get a prostate massager? And I'm like, because I have a prostate. I mean, and here's the thing. I had never tried that. So I had never done, we had mentioned toys earlier. I had never tried anything like that. And I found out that the company that I work for secretly sells them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Secretly.
Yeah. I mean, you can go to their website, and you can go in sexual wellness, and you can find it. And actually, I have been very there about putting my reviews on there, because I put Ro the Genius. So there's no like, oh, I wonder if he's using a pseudonym or something. It was not a pen name. So I wanted everyone to know that I had left these, but I had bought a prostate massager, and she thought that I must, because I was, and I do understand. When I grow up, if something went in your butt, you were gay.
Absolutely.
That was the way to demonize it, because you don't want to be gay.
Exactly.
And the way to determine that you're gay is if something goes in your butt.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's a, like I said, all these conditioning messages, that it's like a negative thing. It's, and it's so different now. So different now. I mean, people are so prideful, of, just like proud of they're owning their sexuality. I shouldn't say prideful. They're just taking that power back, right?
Right.
Don't yuck someone else's yum. Like, don't, we're all in a journey. And
I like that. Don't yuck someone else's
yum. This is
yum.
like a 5-part episode. I'm sorry. I know we're probably way over your
we can talk. I love talking. So, and I'm watching Bobbi a lot, because I know that she's not speaking a lot on this, but I know that she's getting a lot. I see her nodding, and I can see in her eye. I mean, I think she's enjoying knowing that so that's some of the questions that we have. Like, I've always said, hey, because I just don't want to work a regular job, I go, we should make porns and put them out on the internet. And one of her concern was, well, how about if someone we know sees it? And I'm like, do you think they're going to come up and come up and tell you? And it goes back to a joke. And I don't think I told Bobbi this until when we once went back when I was like 18 and 19, the only way to see naked girls was go to like strip clubs. They had like theaters back then that you could go to. Well, I don't know what you'd call them. So anyway, there was one here in Kansas City, and we went, and this was a group of me and like 15 guys. And we're sitting in the back, and we're enjoying ourselves. But there's a guy really getting into it up front. And people are in our group are saying something about it. And I look, and it's my mom's secretary's husband.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I made sure that I went up and said hi to him. Because as an 18-year-old in a strip club, that's fine. And, this would have been like 1986-ish, somewhere in there. So that was fine. But having an adult, so I loved having that. I never used it, but every time I saw him, I would always give him a big smile and a big, hey, how you doing? You know, you guys going out anytime soon, and try to lead that. So I think it's just so weird how things have changed.
Well, and that's something I did say at the beginning. You know, I still have one foot kind of in the closet just because our religious climate here in Utah. Both my husband and my husband's family are Mormon. We grew up Mormon. My husband and I have been Mormon together, and have left the church, obviously. But I guess it's not obvious. You can still talk about sex and be a very sexual person in Mormon, but being this open. And so I still have one foot in the closet, and I was like, and someone was like, what if, you know, your mother-in-law finds out about the podcast? I'm like, I'm going to have more questions for her than she's probably going to have for me. Like, how did she find us?
Right. Yeah.
What was she looking at that, you know? And so it's like, it's never been something I've been overly worried about, but I definitely want to make sure that I'm not like in people's faces or forcing this message down. Absolutely not. It is here when you're ready. There are some episodes that are so far left field that are very, very fringe, I guess is another word that some people use, right? Just not the norm, that can scare some folks.
Well, give me an example topic of that.
Yeah.
Give me an example topic of a fringe episode for our listeners. Or what would you consider maybe fringe?
See, that's hard. Don't ask me my definition of fringe because, like, not a lot scares me.
Because how about if I say that's because that would be that's mainstream. Hello.
Right. You know, like even lifestyle or you know, swinging, polyamory, and then doing it in a very helpful way and having therapists say it's a very healthy way to express your sexuality. That scares a lot of people because for messaging, you know, for the longest time, monogamy is the only way to be a healthy partner. Monogamy is the only way to have healthy relationships. You should never open up to more. You should save yourself for marriage. You know, all of these messages that we've probably grown up with and, you know, that are historically tied to religion and things like that. Like that is very fringy, I guess you can say.
Right.
You know, even things like pegging and other different, you know,
Bobbi just pointed at me when you said pegging.
No.
Just because of
Go ahead, Bobbi.
Conversation. I mean, our kids say that, and I didn't know what that was.
Well, they did, and that's another thing about terminology has really changed. So I found out recently that if you're 25 or under, unless your parents were like us and open, you don't know what a Hummer is. You have no idea that a Hummer is a blowjob.
Right. It's a car.
It's a car. And I did this. I found that out. Someone said something, and then I asked our daughters who one is 25. She didn't know. The other one's 19. She didn't know. They go, it's a car. I'm like, yeah, that's it. And then I started asking, and it seemed like the only person that I found under 25 that knew that a Hummer was a blowjob was someone that said, well, my parents weren't. They sounded like me and Bobbi, where we weren't. I mean, we would.
But our kids didn't know what that was, so that doesn't make sense.
No. So it's weird, though, that the terminology has even changed because we didn't know what pegging was. Right. And then Trinity, our youngest, she always loves it. She's very open like me. So Bobbi's just rolling her eyes. Yeah. But she asked, she goes, have you ever let mom peg you? And we have this big joke in our family. It's yet. Yeah. We're yet. I go, no, not yet. Yeah. So I mean, and here's my thing. When I bought the prostate massager, it's all right. I mean, it's not earth shattering for me. It's not earth changing for me. It's
because you've had me.
I know. But it's, you know, I wanted to try it. I wasn't against trying anything because that's how you determine whether you like something or not.
Absolutely.
Unless you have a lot of other information.
Unless you're me.
Yeah, unless you're Bobbi. Yeah. So there she goes.
I'm sure Bobbi has still tried plenty and has said yes or no.
What was that, Bobbi?
I'm not a big trier.
But that's all right. I mean, and that's never been it. But she's always never been one to just, we'll talk about things. And that's fine. I understand there are certain things that you may not like or you may not want. And here's another thing that I was thinking about this week. One of the problems, my mind never shuts off. But I was thinking about, I am a big bidet person. We traveled out of the country. I found a bidet. What a bidet was. I knew what they were, but I'd actually used one for the first time in 2008, and we've had one ever since. Love bidets. And there seems to be a lot of talk about, I don't think there's a better word than,
just say it.
I think it's actually analingus.
Oh.
Is the correct term, but ass eating. And so I always joke.
Tossing salad is a big thing right now.
Yeah, so I'm always like, why are bidets not a bigger deal?
Right.
Then, I mean, I'm like, I'm always fresh down there. So, I mean, if someone's like, I'm going to eat your ass, I'd be like, okay, have fun. I mean, it would be like, at least it's clean. And then I started I was trying to think about when people are like, well, it's because it's dirty. And then I'm a dog person, and I'm going to keep thinking, I get kisses from my dog. There's probably 99% of the chance within the last 5 minutes she's been licking herself probably at some point. So I it's one of those things that because it's a butt or whatever, you have that thing. Because I always joke that a lot of the videos that I have when I work out at home, I just let YouTube videos run. And a lot of them are ass shaking, I mean, that's what it's about a lot. And it's just funny that has changed, because that was something that would have never been I mean, I don't think I had ever really even heard of about that unless there was a joke. I think there was a Chris Rock stand-up thing in the 90s about tossing a salad when you mentioned that. But that's the only time. So that's changed a lot too.
Yeah, you have things that come in ebbs and flows, right? And that's probably a new trendy thing, is a lot of butt play. A lot of backdoor stuff. Felt like I just did an Instagram reel.
I saw it. I loved it. I loved it. Like, no, hard pass. I love that. That was very good.
And that is something I have tried. And I can say, I'm just not a huge fan of that sensation. And it's not that I have been like, no, no, no.
Right.
But most of the time I'm like, no, no, no. Okay, maybe nope, just kidding.
Right.
And it's incremental. And it has been self-exploration too.
Right.
But the judgment isn't there. I'm not judging myself for not liking it. I have so many friends who are like loving backdoor play, who absolutely love it, who want double penetration, toys, all the things. And I'm like, I just cannot.
Right.
And so I felt for a little bit of time that I was missing out on something.
Right.
So I felt a little pressure to really, really go explore it. And I was like, I have given this a good old college try. It's just not for me. And I'm okay with that. And so I really want to give everyone permission. Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean you're going to like it. If you know, and just tell everyone to, screw off.
Right.
I don't know if we can swear on your podcast.
Oh,
but.
yeah. Oh, yes, we can. So, okay. But that is one thing that, letting people, I've never understood this, and Bobbi and I talk about it all the time, where people can't say no. And it doesn't matter to what it is, whether it's no to someone, it doesn't matter what it is. People seem to have a hard time saying no, and you can just say no. And maybe it's because they're feeling that they're getting judged, but just like you said, is that when I bought that prostate massager, I did it twofold. I wanted to try it, and I wanted to leave a review just because I really wanted to zing it to some people. But it's fine. Like I say, I mean, if someone's like, if Bobbi's like, do you want to? I mean, I just don't know. It wasn't earth shattering for me. And just like you said, that's fine. I don't need to. I tried it and I didn't like it. But someone, actually the person that asked that other question had asked something and I didn't know. But is there anything anally for a woman, because they don't have a prostate, that can be stimulated? Is there any sort of G-spot related to the woman in that area?
There's definitely a lot of things that are going on down there. I mean, a lot of your nerve endings are quite condensed for a woman down there, okay. Right? So it can still help build pressure against your vaginal wall if you have something inserted in there. So that's why I like double penetration or butt plugs. So then your male partner or a dildo or something can hit your G-spot better. And it causes, because it's like one thing's pushed against one wall, the other thing's pushed against the other, and it kind of gets like, so there's like different things like that. And I know that's why a lot of people like it, or just the vibration, something that vibrates down there can help everything. It just depends on your nerve endings and what you enjoy. So there's so many different ways. And that's why I'm saying there's not one way to have pleasure. There's not one way to have sex. There's not one way to explore. Every human experience is normal. Like there's rare cases that it's like, oh, that's interesting.
I've seen your merchandise and I love your merchandise on your website, but you need one that just says there's not just one way.
Oh, I like that.
Because, it's true. Everyone is different. Something that I may like may be different than what someone else likes. You need to determine what you like. And if that incorporates nicely with your partner, that's great. Because I do know there are times where Bobbi and I will be intimate and we'll get into a position where I know that one of us is enjoying it a lot more than the other one.
Oh, always.
Yeah. Man, this has been so much fun talking to you. And
Thank you.
At some point, I'm going to also talk to you about podcasting, because I will tell you the most jealous I've got about you so far is when you keep talking about this producer that you have. And Bobbi laughs because that has always been a bane to my existence. I wish I could. I tell my co-host in New York City that I found the perfect job. He goes, yeah. And he goes, where? I go, I gave it to you, because I just want someone to say, show up at this time on this date and we'll record, and have someone else podcast or do the soundboard or do all these, get us a theme song. I wanted to get a smile out of Bobbi on that one, because we're 23 episodes in or still don't have a theme song yet.
That's maybe you just need to record some bones from your sex session, and
I've said that too. See, and that's another thing that I think is preventing me. I always talk about how open I am. Mm-hmm. And for my retirement, I opened an OnlyFans account. But I've done nothing with it. And I've always said I would do I'm not very shy. It's funny how your spectrum changes. Like, if someone came up to me and said, I don't even know, but what I would do for money now is much different at 54 than it would have been at 24. And so I am glad that OnlyFans has shown up. I just haven't done anything. And I still think that's part of me, even though I say I'm so open and I'll do this and do that, but yet there's still a timid part of me that won't do whatever happens on OnlyFans. So, and it's weird that, that even talking to you, and I guess I've never gone to a therapist, so I guess this is what happens in therapy, is you also talk, because when I'm talking, I'm like, oh, right. Because I'm becoming more self-aware, which I love.
Right. My therapist loves me because I end up he just listens, and I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. I just realized this, blah, 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 yada, yada. He barely gets 2 words in, typical. Yeah.
But they'll bill you for the full hour. I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I'm just kidding. So, but I think they do that on your podcast too. So now you do have a milestone coming up in your podcast, the end of May, correct?
Massive milestone. Yes, we are hitting 100 episodes. And so,
hold on, I have something for that. I don't know if you can hear that on your end, but that's the applause button. I actually added some applause.
Oh, I can't hear it. It doesn't come through on the
I know.
phone.
For some reason, going out on the phone, it won't. But Bobbi and I heard it, and for me, not being a very good producer, there was pretty good timing of me hitting the applause there. Yeah. So you have 100 episodes coming up. You doing anything special?
We sure are. We are throwing a big old bonfire party in Hooper, Utah. So if anyone wants to come out, take the train. There's a big train station in Utah right by there.
Now, let me ask. Hold on. I'm going to stop you right there.
Took your train. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Is that the Amtrak train that goes west into like San Francisco? Do you know?
I do not know. Amtrak, yes.
Okay, because Bobbi and I have always talked about, we take the train a lot. And we have a daughter that goes to school in Chicago, and we've always talked about going through the Rockies. We've never gone through the Rockies. And we've always talked about leaving like Chicago and then taking, the last time a couple of weeks ago, we took a sleeper car, which was amazing. And we've talked about going through the Rockies, which would pass right through there. So that's why, sorry, I just had to ask because who knows, maybe someone will make a visit someday. So, okay, so your 100th episode is coming up, and the date again?
That is May 28th. Is our party date. So 90 days from today.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It seems like a long time out there until I start thinking of all the things that are going into it. We actually have a brew supply company in Ogden that is going to make us a signature Salty Sexcast sour beer because I love sours, and so I'm so excited for this. So there's a lot of fun things that are going to happen for it. And if you want tickets or just want to hear about more what's going on, you can visit saltysexcast.com and you can listen to our podcast there, buy our merch, whatever. Want to learn some more things. It's a brand new website. I'm still tweaking it, so don't judge me on the.
It is very nice. I would have not known that it was fairly new. I've been on it this week, and so I noticed. And that's where I noticed your merch. Your merch is very nice too. I like your logo. Very much so.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I was a local artist that designed that. So yeah, I try to keep things as local as we can to Utah because there's a lot of cool fucking people here.
Yeah, there are. And I will tell you, I like very much of your Instagram. So I will make sure I share that as well. And for people that aren't following after this episode, follow Mariah on the Salty Sexcast Instagram as well. So I will share that because it's a lot of fun. You share a lot of fun content. And see, once again, this goes back to the whole producer thing that is not my forte. There are episodes that I forget to promote, which maybe there's a reason why. I will not forget to promote this one, but there have been times like that. So I am so glad that we had you on this show. I'm probably having more questions. I will probably spend the next hour writing down questions.
Hey, well, if you want to chat off air, I'm still available.
I know you are. So I want to say thank you so much for being on the show. Bobbi, you want to say anything?
No, thank you. It was great.
It was. I will tell you, I know that she did not talk a lot during this podcast, but I know that she got a lot out of it because I've been watching her face the whole time. So, or most of the time. It's nice. And that's one of those things that Bobbi I'm glad that she was on this call. I mean, on this podcast, because I didn't know whether she would be comfortable even listening to this talk. So I appreciate Bobbi being on this podcast. I appreciate you being on this podcast, Mariah. Everyone that's listened, thank you so much. Mariah, anything to say in goodbyes to our peoples?
Hey, there's not just one way.
I love that. I think you need to make a shirt or something like that. That was great.
Oh, it's going to be. Thank you for the idea. I love it.
Okay. So everyone else,
so much.
You're welcome. Bobbi, you want to send us out?
Sure. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to The Longest One Night Stand with Bobbi
and Ro. Thank you all so much. We'll talk to you later.